Hi there, and welcome to this episode of the Formula WINOL podcast, reviewing the Bahrain Grand Prix and previewing the Sakhir Grand Prix. First of all, rather than going chronologically through the weekend as we have in previous episodes, we're just going to cover the big topic, which is Romain Grosjean's horrific crash right at the start of the race. We're doing this not only to address the big topic, but also just to get it out of the way, as other people may find this somewhat traumatic. I myself haven't enjoyed having to see it repeatedly, especially during the live feed. And that's totally understandable. And so what we'll do is we'll put a timestamp in the description so that viewers can skip this section of the podcast if they wish not to have to listen to it. The news so far is positive, and Romain is recovering. He seems to only have burns to his hands and no fractures. However, he will not participate at this weekend's Sakhir Grand Prix, with Pietro Fittipaldi making his F1 debut in Romain's place. I want to take this opportunity to thank the FIA, the medical team and the stewards at the track on behalf of all three of us for the incredible response to the accident. It's another reminder of how dangerous motorsports can be and the importance of stewards at any event. We've seen it in every motorsport that we've discussed this year, especially in the BTCC and their support races. Unfortunately, there's always people in every sport, in every arena, who will make jokes and unfortunately don't understand the severity of these situations. And it's just an opportunity to condemn those actions, really. Those who made the decision to do such a thing. The lack of basic humanity and making jokes when we have little to no information on a driver's condition is astounding and just simply shouldn't happen. We weren't to know how bad Grosjean was burnt, what his injuries were like. Just because the driver's out of the car doesn't mean that they're safe or they're going to survive it. Thankfully, in this instance, it hasn't been too major, but we've seen instances before with shock, with anything else. And it was just horrifying to see some of the comments. And we've just now recently seen a lot of news on Twitter about Kvyat's social media, which we might discuss a bit in this opening section as well. What were your guys' emotions and opinions on the accident and the response with restarting and all the rest of that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll go first. The one thing that I wanted to say is that when watching a race, I've only got that feeling that I got when I saw that crash 2 times. The other time was when I watched the F2 race live at Spa, and I saw Hubert's crash. I think it is a miracle that he survived that. Is it Alan van der Merwe?
Yeah.
I'm not sure how you pronounce it. I've probably ruined that pronunciation, but hero, driver of the day, 100%, along with Grosjean. And also I'd like to give a shout out to, and I'd like to give my thanks to the marshal. I saw this on Twitter. I don't know the full details of it, but apparently there was a marshal that literally ran on the inside of the track from one of the other posts just to grab a fire extinguisher and put the car out. He wasn't given clearance to do so. He wasn't given the yes, okay, that go do that. He just did it. He reacted on human instincts. The fact that the car completely split in half and burst up into flames, there needs to be a review. Something, needs to happen, whether it's Haas specific, whether it's, something to do with the monocoque. And then the only other thing I wanted to say before I pass it on to Ed was, there's actually a couple of things. One is the halo, and the fact that I don't think anyone can really say a bad word about it now, because it's proved today that it can and has saved lives. More so with the Grosjean crash than the Stroll incident, but I still think with the Stroll incident when he was bouncing over the exit curb, it still could have been a lot worse. And the last thing that I wanted to say on the matter was the fact that I don't think when people see this, they can't call F1 drivers, athletes, and F1 as sport less than any other, because the fact that these young men are able to strap themselves into these cars that are killers, they can kill people, and they do it week in, week out because it's what they love to do. And the fact that people forget, because the safety is so good now, that 20 years ago Grosjean would not have survived that. That's just the honest truth. You look at Niki Lauda, he probably shouldn't have survived that crash. It was only because people stopped and helped and pulled him out. So I think, the fact that people are still not willing to call F1 a motorsport is disgusting, because they're putting themselves under a hell of a lot more risk than most other sports I can think of.
Yeah, I don't really have too much to add. It was, at the time, I've only felt like that a couple of times. That whole day, I didn't see the Hubert crash live, but I was in the car at the time. And the whole evening waiting to hear the news, I felt genuinely sick, as I did yesterday. Like, that was horrifying. I felt that another time during one of the Red Hours crashed like 10 years ago during a Bournemouth Air show, and I was there that day. And yeah, I felt like that day as well. You just feel almost guilt.
Yeah, you feel bad for watching it.
Yeah, almost. It's like, obviously you couldn't have done anything to help, especially if it's in Bahrain, because you're like thousands of miles away. But it was horrifying to watch. I couldn't have been more relieved when I saw him out of the car, even as Torin said, that doesn't guarantee he's 100% safe or he'll survive, but it was great to see it. Just the extent of how great safety's come. As Tom said, 20 years ago, people wouldn't have survived that. I'd go further. I'd say 4 years ago, no one would have survived that. Well, you saw with
Bianchi, I know it's a slightly different incident, but...
Yeah. To be fair, it's not really. It's... Obviously, one was a barrier, one was a crane, but like with a halo, both of them would have survived probably. It's hard to say definitively for Bianchi, but it's such an awful thing to speak about. The jokes are disgusting. The abuse Kvyat's getting is disgusting. Even for the Stroll incident, I said at the time I thought that was Stroll's fault, but it was all down to opinion on that. But it's any abuse anyone's getting. At the end of the day, they are doing what they love, and if, that's all I got to say on this. Really.
The most important thing before people start looking at who's at fault in these situations is the driver safe. This relates to something that happened earlier this weekend that I was going to touch on later in the podcast, but I think it's probably best that we can bring it up now just so it's done and out of the way with, is Albon's crash in FP2. And I saw on Twitter that people were getting mad that other people were posting about, Albon's career's over, it's down the drain, when he hadn't even got out the car. It wasn't the extent of Grosjean's crash, I will admit, but it was still a big impact, and he could have been injured from that. And I think a review does need to be conducted into this, because we were all three of us were talking when it happened. And a really interesting point that Torin brought up, actually, was the fact that they were replacing the barriers with concrete, which obviously was the quickest thing to do, and maybe, given the resources they had, was the best option. But it was really interesting because I myself wasn't actually aware of the different kinds of barrier, ARM code. Is it Tech Pro or
Tech Pro?
Yeah. And I think it's following a lot of instance where the FIA has been sort of, some of the stuff they've done is questionable.
Yeah, I didn't. So I was paying not as much attention. I had it on another screen, and I was just shutting down what I was doing before because I kind of rushed to get to the race. I wasn't really ready in time, and I remember watching it. And I wasn't paying enough attention. I remember just hearing my brother shouting from the other room that a car had just blown up, and I was like, okay, that was a bit crazy. You did in fact say that it was like the Hubert incident. I have also said that it felt like Hulkenberg in 2018 in Abu Dhabi, because that felt like something mad was going to happen.
Yeah.
So I think we can now say that that's the third incident where a driver's been saved by the halo.
Absolutely.
In F1.
Well, Leclerc.
I think. Well, so many more, even like Leclerc. I was going to say Stroll as well, because there was so much damage to the halo that day. And then Alonso and Leclerc, and so many incidents which could have been so much worse.
Yeah. There's probably even ones that we haven't.
Yeah.
We don't even realise that are in F2 and F3. One that's just come to mind is Peroni in Monza, where he just went flying into the barriers.
I just wanted to add on to Ed's point as well, which was also adding on from my initial point about we don't know when the driver's gone out of the car that they're entirely safe. We do know that Grosjean is definitely more, touch wood, definitely safe. He's being discharged from the hospital. He's sent in tomorrow, which is just the best news. And it couldn't have happened. Obviously, you don't want it to happen to any driver, but a driver 3 races from retirement who's got a young family.
Yeah,
it's just, and then they kept playing it, replaying it, and replaying it, and the only driver who seemed fazed by any of it was Daniel Ricciardo.
Yeah, that's something that I did want to bring it on to.
Yeah.
And the only other thing I've really got to say on this topic was it showed how these F1 drivers, and these constructors, they compete for money, they drive to beat each other, and yet it just shows when things like this happen that F1 is a community, it's a big family. And the fact that, I don't know if you guys have seen it, we probably can't put it in the podcast because of copyright and whatnot, but it was Leclerc's radio. I don't think they played it on the TV.
No, they didn't.
But it was sort of like he sounded heartbroken because he's lost so many of his friends.
And family as well, fuels,
in these kind of instants, and he was sort of like, please tell me he's okay. And he was asking his engineer like every 5-10 seconds, like, what's happened? Is he out? Is he okay? And yeah, I think Ricciardo's comment is spot on, and it's surprising that other drivers haven't responded to that or agreed with him or said similar things. Obviously, like, it's understandable because, I can understand it because the FIA is like, and the TV producers are like, right, he's okay to an extent, he's out the car, but as I think you said, they were playing replays before it was clear what injuries he had, and then I think also Verstappen's comment was, I like Verstappen. I think he is a fantastic racer. He's a future world champion, but he can't make comments like that.
That was totally out of place, and we did have a discussion at the time in the watch channel I was in about which drivers could feasibly refuse to go out and race, and it was only really the drivers without a contract. An interesting point that I think was brought up, and just the two that I really want to, if we can sort of move to round off this conversation.
Sure.
Unless anyone else has any other points beyond is to discuss the concrete barriers, first of all. I thought it was an awful idea. I thought the race should have been cancelled as soon as there was any concrete barriers that were available. My reasoning for that is because the crash happened at 137 miles per hour at something like 50G. If that had happened into concrete, the concrete's stopping it. He's not going to get embedded in the concrete to do aided in the barrier, and there's no guaranteeing what would happen.
No.
Yeah, concrete it was such a like medieval sort of, it just seemed really poor choice from the FIA. What did you think about that,
Ed? I think obviously it wasn't an ideal solution. I think I know Armco replacements take a long time. So as you saw in the live feed, they had to literally dig out the whole foundations of the barrier.
Yeah, and they started welding it so it'd be safe to remove.
Yeah. So it was like any replacement would have taken a long time because I think they have to let it set and all that. So replacing the Armco with another Armco is basically out of the question if we wanted the race to continue. And that's always what's at the front of the FIA's mind. They'll never want to cancel a race, like, unless it was 100% necessary. And I think the concrete replacement, although it was not ideal, it's also used. It is used in other places. It's used in places like Baku, and it's not ideal. It's bad, but it's something. It's there.
So a lot of those tracks don't use straight concrete. A lot of the street circuits, they use a thing called softer or something. It's basically a hybrid. As you say, it's correctly. It is a lot of it's concrete, but it's also sort of like tires and softer materials. Because a good example is the 2017 Turn 1 Singapore in the wet. The impacts we had with the barriers there, that can't be concrete. But you're right in saying that the FIA would never wants to cancel a race. And there is lots of arguments both sides, and that's why the race went ahead. We knew that Grosjean was in a stable condition, that he was conscious and that he was moving and talking. Yeah. And he was in the back of an ambulance on the way to somewhere to be checked over. So the race didn't have to be cancelled. If he'd have gotten in the back of the ambulance and was unconscious, the race would have been cancelled.
Absolutely.
I think that's what the policy is.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I wanted to discuss, just briefly, that Tom sort of brought up was redesigning the cars. I have briefly discussed this with other people, and the issue with it is obviously the fuel has to be close enough to the engine for it to be fed through and whatnot. So your only options really are to put the fuel in front of the engine or figure out a way to put it behind the engine. And then your issue with that is that the fuel's at the back of the car, and we see instances all the time where rear end hits happen. So like again, let's say Baku 2018, the infamous Red Bull crash.
Yeah.
If that fuel had been in the back of the car,
Easily could have been a fire. Yeah.
that could have been catastrophic. But as you say, yeah, it is incredible, the safety and the fact that the survival cell escaped the car. But it is an issue that the fuel went with it, even though it was only a tiny bit of fuel. Ross Brawn said it after the race. He said that it was obviously not any more than 3 or 4 kilos of fuel that went with him.
Yeah.
And that the other 100 or so kilos were left in the engine compartment, or the engine half of the car. But yeah, there's not much more you can do about redesigning the car.
No, I think it's praise. I think it's praise to the monocoque. I think it's, with these things, it's all about risk, and whatever you do with an F1 car, however you build it, there's always going to be that risk. There's always going to be that weak point that something could go wrong. As the safeties come on leaps and bounds, but you're never going to have a race car that is 100% safe. It's why they have, even on indoor go-karting, whenever I go, I have to watch a safety briefing, every single time that says motorsport is dangerous, because these things can just happen. And it's exactly the same with what happens inside, what happens with the car and what happens with the track. And so I think, in my personal opinion, I think the race should have been cancelled. I think postponing it would have just been too much of a mess. But the thing is yes, it's very unlikely that an incident would happen again at the same corner that would mean the concrete barriers were used, but it's still possible. And the fact that there is a risk, I don't think it really matters what states Grosjean's in. The fact that there's a chance that could happen again at that exact same spot, and it could be much worse because it's concrete instead of Armco, I think it should have been cancelled, in my opinion.
By yourself, Ed, with redesigning cars, what's your thoughts on?
Yeah, I've got just a little bit probably to wrap it up on a bit of both. Is like chance, as Tom touched upon. Well, I'll start with the car. As perfectly as it's designed, there's probably no perfect place for the fuel tank. Like, there's always gonna be places where it is now, it's not 100% safe when there's a crash, because you can never guarantee what will happen. You can only simulate so many things, and the chance of a crash happening at a certain place, certain impact, velocity, G's, all that stuff, you're never going to be able to pinpoint every single crash every time in simulations. So I think in terms of the fuel tank, I think trying to move it is probably like just a bad thing. I think where it is now it's hard to say it, but good enough.
Yeah, I know where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And also as Tom touched upon, on the track and the chance of another crash happening there in the exact location, obviously anything over 0 is something you don't want to have to risk. But I don't think there's ever been a crash there in 16 times we've raced here. So yeah, I think the concrete was it was a patchwork plaster barrier basically, and it shouldn't have been done really. The race probably shouldn't have gone ahead, but the fact that it did without another major incident other than Stroll getting flipped, but another major incident in that area shows that it was the chance of it happening again is quite low.
And I mean, I guess that's, to be honest, everything on that matter. I don't know whether there's anything that you two want to touch. And as Torin said at the start, we'll be putting timestamps in.
Yeah.
So if you guys, it's completely understandable if you guys don't want to hear any more on the matter, then you can just sort of like skip forward to this bit. But yeah, I guess the best way to do it is go through the weekend like we did last time in Turkey. And it starts off with practice. And it wasn't really too eventful. I mean, we had the Pirelli tyres coming in.
They were awful, those new tyres. They looked alright though. The new rim size looked alright.
I didn't mind them. I thought they looked quite cool. But apparently they were sort of like the drivers were complaining that they weren't very grippy. But then, you know, the argument is, well, if they're not very grippy, will that mean it's might be more interesting and better racing?
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I think this year's tyres have been pretty good. We've had it be very dependent on the track surface and the temperature. Hopefully Mercedes don't figure out a way to stop their engine overheating next season. But I mean, the racing wasn't interesting like this weekend in general. Like the qualifying was pretty dull, and I used to only watch qualifying, so I used to work Sundays. So like I used to have this real I used to really enjoy qualifying because obviously the engine modes were higher, and it used to be quite close. But none of this weekend was, you know, it was kind of like it was kind of as if it was all done at Sochi.
Yeah, it was processional, really. Like after the restart, and I only watched the first 40 laps of that race. I eventually gave up, and I had to put the NFL on in the end. I think it was it was just dull. And then the second I stopped watching, Perez's engine blew, and my second favourite driver snatched the podium. So you know,
I wouldn't. I honestly I was a bit gutted. Like
I was gutted for Perez.
I was gutted because Alex got a podium. Like, and I don't mean that in a mean way, but it just felt like that whole bit of the race. Like, it felt like Hamilton was going to come first, Verstappen was going to come second, and Perez was going to come third because it was so spread out. And then behind, every driver was like 10 seconds apart. There weren't really any.
If I'm sorry to interrupt there.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, wasn't Albon only like 2-3 seconds behind Perez when it blew anyway?
He was, but
I think he was.
I believe.
Yeah, somewhere between 2 and 4, but he was only catching at a rate of something like 0.4 of a second. I think there was 4 laps left.
Okay, fair
so it would have been very close in the last lap. Would have been great racing.
Yeah,
but
you still got to make the move and pass him.
Yeah, and I'm still gutted because I still think that the right move is to put Alex and Pierre both at AlphaTauri and bring in Hülkenberg or Perez.
I completely agree. I think Perez at Red Bull would be
I want Hülkenberg, but I'll take Perez.
Yeah.
I think when it comes, I think that is the right option. I think Albon should go to AlphaTauri, and I think Perez should go into Red Bull.
Yeah.
But
my heart says Hülkenberg, but my head says Perez.
My head says Albon
honestly.
at the moment. That's
really?
The thing. I think he's, with this podium and this whole weekend in general, other than the FP2 crash, he's been exactly where Red Bull want him as a number 2 driver. He's albeit 6/10 off in quali or whatever it was. He was still 4th, and he still finished on the podium, and he was still roughly close enough to Max.
Yeah.
On position wise, not time wise.
The thing is,
like something could be done.
The thing is though is that, you know, he was in a good position for qualifying, but he's still 6/10 off, and we could be in the situation where next season McLaren or, you know, Alpine or Aston Martin are much closer to the Red Bulls, and him being 6/10 off could mean rather than starting 4th behind Max, he starts, you know, I don't know, 7th or 8th.
10th, like in Russia.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't see anyone being anywhere near Max Verstappen in that Red Bull, no matter who it is.
No, because it's built around Max's driving style, which is a driver as if he's trying to crash it. That's why he kept having it stepping out on him, and whenever he was asked about it, it's like, oh, you know, grip and dust, and it was like, no, it's not. It's because that car is built a certain way, and whenever you try something else, it doesn't work, and that's why Alex crashed, and why he finds it more difficult to push in that car. Beyond that, I think that if Alex can do what he did in qualifying, that is the role Red Bull want. Do you guys remember Monza 2018, where Kimi got pole and led most of the race?
Yeah.
But Mercedes left Bottas out and he held Kimi up, and then they put it in, and Hamilton won it that way.
Yeah.
They will do that every race next season if Albon has the pace. That's the plan. They leave Albon out, he holds up Hamilton and Bottas, then all 3 of them pit, and then Verstappen gets the undercut and wins the race by a storm, and Albon comes 4th or 5th.
Which is a huge shame, because I think, you know, I don't rate Albon as high as some other drivers that are of his generation. Like, I think I do rate Russell above him personally, and possibly I didn't rate Norris above him last season, but I think this season
he's made massive leaps forward. It's just, you know, the Twitter stands as Ed announced his war on the Norris Twitter stands last year.
Yeah. But I
last
think
year, last week, rather. Sorry, go ahead.
I think if Albon was to have a car that was actually built around him, or not even built around him, a car that he could get on with, that it, as you say, isn't trying to crash every corner, he could do a decent job. And I think it's, I would like to see him in another team. I'd like to see him back at AlphaTauri, because I think it would be really, really interesting to see Gasly and Albon go up, against each other.
Drop Verstappen, and put Albon and Gasly in the Red Bull, I say.
Oh no.
What have they got to lose next season?
Money.
What have they got to lose? They'll still come second in the construction of those two in those cars.
I think, if we quickly go back to just Albon for a sec, I think Perez, is he going to be willing to be that number 2 driver at Red Bull? I don't think he is.
No, not at all. What you're looking at in that scenario is a Rosberg-Hamilton relationship.
And even then, are Red Bull going to be willing to fully design a car that's not just for Max Verstappen?
Well, they've only got tokens, haven't they?
Exactly. So
they can't make the car. Whoever sits in that car is going to be behind. It just depends on how much behind.
I just don't see anyone doing, although Albon isn't doing the best job in terms of his crashes, I don't see anyone doing a job that's worth changing the drivers for.
Yeah, but Albon didn't, if my memory serves me correctly, Albon didn't streak away from Kvyat when they were teammates last season.
No, it was quite even.
It was roughly even.
Albon was ahead, but not by much.
He had good results. He nearly got that podium in Germany, albeit that's although he did take out Gasly.
Yeah, he took. Yeah.
Racing
incident, but
racing incident, wink. But I don't see anyone doing enough for Red Bull that will do what they want them to do. I think Albon is the perfect alibi. That's probably the wrong word, but you know what I mean. The perfect person to pin all their negatives on, and he's not happy to take the brunt, but he's able to, and because he's shown he can deal with the pressure. Although, he's got a podium just after crashing this weekend, so I think. Yeah, I think he'll probably get dropped for Perez, but I don't see it working out.
I think something to I think we've been talking about Albon a lot. I wanted to lighten the mood. Okay, so we had a dog on track. That was probably the most interesting thing that happened in practice. We've had it 2 weeks in a row now. We're talking about I think they need to make sure there isn't as many gaps in the track. So the dogs can't keep on running out. I mean, what's stopping that happening?
I say more dogs.
More dogs.
More dogs. So during practice, when they'll just
make it interesting, spice things up a bit.
Let a whole dog sanctuary loose pre-race. Let them race.
I mean, we don't want a repeat of what happened with Norris and the Marshal during the race.
Yeah, I saw that. we that's what you noted down here. You noted down you were talking about the FIA's response earlier. Or it was the Marshal who reacted on instinct, and I was going to say, oh yeah, another one who reacted on instinct as well, because he ran across the track.
Yeah, it's great.
Full speed McLaren.
Sick.
I love the commentary because Martin Brundle just, Perez, stop the car, come on, you can see the smoke. Don't be acting sus.
I was thinking that as well, to be honest. But yeah, I mean that was about it for practice.
Except for F1 did a brilliant post where they had team radio and they said it was Spaniel Ricardo and had the dog's face on team radio.
The Vettel team radio, I think that's. I know we're doing tweet the week later. But
and Lewis saying that he hoped it wasn't Roscoe.
Yeah, it was some good banter from the.
I don't think Roscoe would be able to run that fast. I'll be quite honest with you.
No, I don't think he had the pace for it. But I mean,
he's got Albon pace compared to Max pace.
Exactly. I think apart from Verstappen, I think Verstappen had something wrong with his DRS.
Oh yeah,
in the third practice session, yeah, but that was about it. And then on to qualifying, Q1 was pretty bog standard. As from memory, nothing really happened, to be honest. Obviously, Sainz had a brake failure in Q2, and actually, it's lucky it happened where it did, because it could have been a hell of a lot worse. If he was going through one of the fast bends on the sort of back end of the track, he could have gone flying into the barrier at a really high speed. So he was, I think, quite lucky to get away with that. And Vettel and Leclerc again out in Q2. I mean, it's just Ferrari. We think, finally Turkey. They've had, this is the comeback. Vettel's starting to make his, before he goes to Aston Martin, he's starting to make his comeback. But no, they're both out in Q2. And then Stroll was out in Q2. I mean, Perez, I'm not sure where he came in qualifying in the end, but he was in the top 10.
He was P5, I believe.
Yeah, what a difference between Stroll getting pole in Turkey and him being out in Q2. Crazy.
I think it just highlights Stroll's inconsistency.
He had an excuse though, didn't he? Because he got on the team.
Miscommunication.
He got on the team radio and said that he needed to pee when Sainz got the red flag out. So I don't know if I don't know if his concentration got
it was
broken.
way down maybe with his.
Yeah, maybe.
I think
this is not a discussion which we have to.
I think there's like every time I hear Stroll say, "Oh, we'll talk later." Like
it's just the way he talks. He's like,
it's just like
I gotta pee.
Everything on Daddy.
Yeah.
That was a really horrible impression, by the way.
Daddy will sort this one out with money.
Oh no! Here we go. It's Ed's hot takes.
Oh god.
Here we go.
Ed and his daddy's cash.
Jeez.
Here we go.
Brilliant.
But no, the other thing that I wanted to say was that this year there hasn't really been a big gap from Hamilton to Bottas in qualifying. It's always been quite small.
It's only when we get into the race, the important bit, that Bottas can't keep up.
Yeah. That we're going to come on to that, but I think it was surprising to see Bottas. He was almost 0.3 back. That was quite surprising. I know Hamilton goes well around Bahrain, but I think it was still quite surprising to see that big of a gap. Apparently, it was down to setup, and obviously in the race, things didn't really go well for him either.
Yeah, I think a lot was down to setup this weekend because a lot of drivers set up for 1 lap pace on qualifying. A lot of drivers set up for the long run. Maybe that's why Stroll was out. We'll never know because we saw him do, 1 lap and then 8 corners.
Yeah,
but
it could have been that he set up for the race.
But I mean, if Perez's performance is anything to go by, he could have been up there.
Yeah, well, yeah, because you could have argued that Perez was just going for 1 lap pace, but then he still was ahead of one of the Red Bulls consistently and on merit for the whole of the race. And then apart from that, the only other driver that I think was of note that I think went undercover a bit was Ocon. Ocon actually had a really good quali. It's the first time that he didn't beat Daniel in qualifying. He's only done that once. I'm not sure what race that was, but I know he's done it once.
Yeah, no, I can't remember what race. It might have been. It was Turkey, wasn't it?
Could have been. But yeah, I'm not sure what the gap was, but I'm pretty sure it was under a 10th, which is we're not really used to seeing. So it was nice to see him up at the pointy end of the grid. And I just remember seeing
That's
on
a great
the Saturday.
pun, by the way.
What did I say?
You said the pointy end of the grid, the bit that earns the points.
Yeah. See,
of course, they usually call it the sharp end.
Yeah, I didn't even have to think about that.
Yeah,
bruh.
That's what your journalism degree has served you well.
Exactly. I'm paying $9,000 to just
puns,
roll off puns like that.
All the puns in your package.
Yeah, exactly. I'm stopping the meat.
Hamilton's
puns.
Turkish delight.
Yes, cold turkey.
Yeah, that was awful.
But I remember seeing a post on Instagram that I just has come into my mind now. I'm like, this did not age well, and it was F1 Racers put out a tweet that was Ricciardo said Ricciardo and Ocon are going to try and bully Perez at the start to try and get past him. And that didn't really go that well. To be honest.
It didn't. It was a shocking race. Like the midfield was nowhere near as exciting as it could have been. I guess maybe all the stoppages did that.
It wasn't too bad. I think if you're interested in strategy and sort of pit stops are your forte, I think there was a really interesting strategic battle between the Renaults and the McLarens. I'm pretty sure it was the Renaults going for that undercut. And it was really weird to see them fighting. I was sort of like, as a Ricciardo fan, I was shouting at the TV like, "What, Ocon? Why are you fighting Ricciardo? He's literally on like 20 laps younger tyres, and you're on I don't know what tyre he was on at the time. Maybe it was a medium or a hard, and he was on like 30 lap older tyres, and he was still trying to fight him. It's like, no, you're hurting your race. You're hurting his race.
Yeah, it was. I still think Red Bull should do the strategy that happens in every Formula One game career mode and just re-sign Ricciardo. The Red Bull, what a duo that'd be. They'd win I can guarantee you, if Red Bull had those two drivers, they'd win the championship next year.
constructors or the
I
drivers?
disagree because
Both, because Ricciardo would win the Drivers' Championship.
They can only
That's
run
a
one
bold
car, and
claim.
that's with the Verstappen on it.
That's true, and they've done that since 2018.
They will just throw Ricciardo on the bus.
And
he can
Ricciardo
be the
did
worst
win
driver.
Monaco that year, and
Without an MGUH.
China.
whatever. Yeah, without an MG in the UH. Was China 2018?
2018,
Yeah, it was.
yeah.
Of course, it was. He came
He
from
went for
sixth.
the full
Yeah.
sand on
Yeah,
Bottas
yeah.
for the
That
win.
was a dangerous move that I may or may not have tried to recreate in a league race and then whipped
Lost
out
your
of
front wing.
because there was a crash 2 corners before and I didn't want to do that. But glossing over that. So as you said, pretty routine, apart from a couple incidents. The Stroll one.
I was going to ask that. Who do you think was at fault here? Because you
It's
two were sort of like...
entirely Kvyat's fault because
Yeah.
he's cutting the corner to hit the driver. It's the same as the incident earlier on. The mirrors are so small that for some reason the drivers don't understand that all the cars have got basically the same mirrors on them. Kvyat hasn't fought there. The fact that he's got to break track,
Torpedo.
the fact that he's got to literally break track limits to get alongside.
Was he
even.
breaking track limits?
Yeah,
or was he just on the curb?
all 4 wheels were beyond the white line.
Right. Okay.
And they're all on the curb,
Yeah.
but they're beyond the white line, and that's what matters.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Stroll could have allowed him more space, but he's got a car. From memory, he had a car on his left or a car just behind on the left, which I'm sure he's being
Possibly,
mindful of that he
right.
didn't want to hit them. In reality, it's probably close to a racing incident than anyone's fault, but I would weigh it sort of 70-30 to Kvyat.
I think the
If I
fact.
speak.
Yeah.
If I speak, I'm in big trouble.
I'll let Ed get on to what he thought of the incident.
I've already said it.
I'm-
If I speak. That's all I'm trying to say.
I'm quite on the fence. I think I would go with Torin. The fact that he's weighing more on Kvyat's side of the blame, simply because Kvyat, he wasn't committed. It was a half move. He wasn't really fully alongside him. He was like maybe half a car's width ish. I don't think it was really on, and the fact that he had to the angle that they were both going at, the angle that they were both taking the corner at. Stroll was going for a late apex, and Kvyat was just torpedoing up the inside. It was gonna happen, but Ed has chosen not to speak on the issue.
He's filling off a good old Jose.
Yeah.
Yes.
What was it? One of the commentators said something partway through, and it was like the German solution or something like that, or like the German.
Yeah, and then they started talking about it. Was like Crofty was like, oh, doesn't that normally means that England are going to lose on penalties? I was like, what's that got to do with F1? Like,
Yeah, I left at one point and came back, and they were talking about that they should have brought a kettle with them, and that Simon Lazenby had brought up a horrible cup of tea.
because he used to be a runner apparently.
And I was like, what is going on? I was gone for 5 minutes, and it's the entire the coverage has gone to just nothing.
Fire David Croft.
They were just trying to make it interesting.
Make
That
it-
was
put
probably
Alex
at the
Jakes
boring.
in.
Yeah,
Put David Croft on Channel 4 and bring Alex Jakes to Sky.
Alex
please.
Jakes.
Just
he
swap
is
the teams around.
fantastic, Yeah.
Just no, keep Martin Brundle.
No, of course, yeah, but I mean most.
Ted Kravitz.
Yeah. Well, now we're just keeping half and half.
But yeah, just get rid of David Croft. That's it. That's all we need.
Yeah,
Everyone
I
else is
agree.
good.
I think Alex Jakes to F1.
I really want like the commentary team from I'm trying to think. What World Cup was it? It was probably the 2014 World Cup, the Brazilian commentary team. They were brilliant. I remember old FIFA games switching the language of the commentary because they'd have better reactions to goals.
Golazo!
It is
Exactly
true.
that.
It is
Exactly that.
You know what I've just thought? Wouldn't it be interesting if they had the BTCC commentators?
Wouldn't it be
On
interesting
F1.
when we had
With
VAR in
David
F1?
Simmons.
Oh
Yeah.
god.
They have to stop all the cars.
Please God no. They're like just pause the race.
Oh, potential contact here. Oh, and Stroll's gone over, and it's Kvyat. It's a 10-second time penalty. It's
no
Rebecca
clear and
Vardy.
obvious, no clear and
Gary
obvious
Gary
decision.
Neville's 2012 commentary.
This is now becoming a football podcast.
Absolutely not. Me and
No
Ed
more
would
football.
not be able
This
to
is
talk about
gonna
football
end
for more
very
than 5
badly.
minutes.
We support the 3 worst clubs in the league. Let's move on.
Yeah, loserpool.
That's all you need to know.
One thing I want to quickly mention is the constructor standings. I don't know if this was already on the script, but
I think it was actually
it's in
on
my
the
head.
other page.
It's in my head, so I just want to get it out while I'm here. Obviously, Racing Point had an absolute stinker. Obviously, probably both really no fault from their own, but no points all weekend. McLaren, they got fourth and fifth, and Ricciardo came 6th, I believe.
I think that
Did
was
he come-
Gasly. I think it
Gasly
was
sixth.
P7 and 8.
Yeah, 7
Okay,
and 8.
sorry, I wasn't. I didn't watch the whole race. So, so
blame
Renault
you.
are now. If let's just go from the top. So obviously, Mercedes 533, they've already won the thing. Red Bull 274, they're already guaranteed second. McLaren up to third with 171. Racing Point fourth, 154, and then Renault fifth with 144. Then Ferrari sixth, 131. So it's still really all to play for with 2 rounds left.
It is. I think it's the championship is really, really interesting. Max has a really good chance to beat Bottas for second if Bottas keeps on having mares of races.
I think it's only 10 points behind.
I think it's 189 to 201, so it's 12
I'm
points.
on the F1 website, so I can have a quick look. It's
Checking.
201 for Bottas and 189 for Verstappen.
Right.
Look at that.
I knew it was a small
Because
gap.
they kept showing it over and over again, and I've seen it so many times.
It's like we'd rather see the Ricardo Perez Leclerc.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
much more interesting in my
Sure
opinion.
While I'm on that, I'll mention that as well. Ricardo fourth, 102 points.
he's going to come
Yes.
fourth.
Perez
My man.
fifth, 100 points. And Leclerc sixth, 98.
Obviously, it's heartbreak for Perez when he had that breakdown. But I got to admit, I was cheering at the TV.
We show our bias a bit on this podcast, don't we?
We do. But then it
You've
makes
got to have to be
it makes it
impartial.
personal.
Got the Hamilton
Exactly.
fan over there. We got the 2 Ricardo
Did you
fans.
just? If I speak,
If I speak,
let's
I'm in
move
big
on
trouble.
before I throw something.
But the
Ooh.
other championship fight that is really interesting now is the Norris ahead of Sainz,
Okay, all those
ahead of
numbers up to.
Albon. There's only 1 point in that, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, Norris 7th, 86,
Yeah.
and then Sainz and Albon on 85.
Which I think is really, really interesting.
I like to think that the most interesting thing about that is how far Red Bull are ahead of everyone else in the constructors, yet how close Albon is to the McLaren drivers, and then how far ahead of them Perez is.
Yeah.
If I speak, I'm in big trouble. I also want to point out that they should get rid of AWS altogether because that race was ruined by AWS.
Oh my god, the amount of
I
times
didn't even see them.
They
but-
kept
the
showing
amount
them.
of times it was on the screen. It takes the I'm sort of stealing a bit of a comment here from Matt Gallagher.
Oh, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Because the old Hamilton
gonna
fan
get
will get upset
cancelled.
about
Careful.
it.
But no, it wasn't what you think it is. But I think he said it's sort of like it took the fun out of with the pit stop strategies. It was the whole fun of is he going to get out in front of that other driver, and with this AWS graphic where it's sort of like predicted gap or chance of overtake, it's cool. Don't get me wrong, and it's amazing that they can come up with that kind of stuff. But I think it does take part of the fun out of it, in my opinion.
Just to add a disclaimer, that's nothing against any members of that organisation or the organisation itself. We all enjoy their content.
Yes.
Ed slightly less, but he can't help but have an
Immensely.
opinion on
I
everything.
actually bought something off their store once. So
Yeah, I'm
two things,
going
actually.
to when
I bought a
have
mug
money.
which is now ruined. Didn't last very long. And
Mugs never do.
Yeah, it was one of those thermochromic ones where you put the hot water.
Oh
in.
really?
It was like a fuel gauge, and
That's kind of cool. I rate that.
Alright.
Yeah, it changed colour when it got hot.
Yeah.
And also on my keyring, I've got a little gear shift thing.
Oh nice.
It was like a £5 total. So I think it was like Black Friday, like 3 years ago.
But yeah, I
so
mean,
I love WTF1.
but no, nothing against them. But I mean, the other stuff that I sort of had jotted down here was there was a bit of a confusion. I was raging at the telly because there was a massive sort of mishap with what order they were starting in. Perez was in P3, so you were like, okay, so they're starting it from the order when the red flag was brought out. And then Ricciardo was in P6, which is his starting position. So I was like, what the hell's going on here? Didn't really end up mattering too much because he got a bad start and fell down to P9. Perez sort of stayed where he was. The other thing that I wanted to say was I think Leclerc was actually one of the unsung heroes of the race. He had a really, really good start. He went up to P7. He fell backwards. Sainz did I think personally, the second best move of the race on Leclerc, where he sort of like did a little fake into
that
turn
was
one.
tasty, I saw that.
I think my favourite move of the race, and I'm slightly biased here when I say this, was the same corner that Stroll got punted on. Ricciardo It was another sort of fake move.
I think I saw
This
that.
was the big
How
lock-up,
he
wasn't it,
locked
down the
up
inside?
and
Yeah.
really killed
Yeah.
3 people.
I'm not sure who it
No,
was
he
on.
didn't.
Was it on Leclerc? I'm gonna guess. Was it on Leclerc?
Yeah, I believe it was on Charles.
Yeah.
Leclerc-ish.
But I think Leclerc still did well to rescue a point. It was interesting that Bottas couldn't fight back. After I think he got a puncture, which is why he pitted under the safety car.
I don't think
he
it was
only-
that interesting.
No, I think it's hard to tell whether it's because we haven't really seen Hamilton in the pack, low down in the pack, having to fight back.
Yeah,
sort
we
of
saw it at
under a-
Monza, and he was quite good at it, considering the car
Yeah,
doesn't
he
follow.
absolutely side through the
Did he? That's
side
And
one
Bo-
from my
Bottas
memory.
couldn't, because Bottas had a
Right.
bad start,
Yeah.
and then he had to do it, and he couldn't, and
He
then
just
Hamilton
can't
got his
overtake.
penalty.
Yeah, I
there's
actually
a-
can't remember that weirdly.
It was good.
Of course, yeah.
Gasly
How am
winning
I
in the
forgetting
car.
that? Yeah, they're literally the whole reason that they were put in that position to win.
Right, so the next section is our predictions. Are we just going to do the predictions for the race review, or are we going to do our predictions
we
for
can
the
go over
next
the race
one?
review, and then because obviously don't know if we're allowed in next week. We might well just do the whole preview now as well.
That is true.
Yeah,
There
just
were
kill two birds with one stone, really.
Yeah.
there were a couple of things before we get into the previews.
Well, we need to do your predictions and then Formula 2.
predictions.
Do F2 first.
There were only two things that I wanted to say really quickly, and it was I think Russell had a really good race. He came in home in P12. He was very close to the point, and he kept where he was the whole time. And also Gasly in P6, I think, was very, no one really gave him much praise, but I think he had I'm not sure how many stops he did or what his strategy. I know it was sort of he had to do a lot of tyre conserving at the end. Ricciardo would have passed him, I think, for P6, but I think it was I think it was still a very deserved P6.
I think
for him.
Gasly always goes well in Bahrain. He always has. He had fourth in 2018
Yeah,
in
of
his
course,
Bahrain
yeah.
debut. I can't remember last year. It probably wasn't great because he was in the Red Bull, but
I think it was sort of like a P5, P6.
which I thought, in fact, if it was, that was probably his best result in Red Bull.
He got
Yeah.
a P4 at Hungary
but
because
still a
everyone else
letdown.
retired.
Right.
And then obviously P6. So he's very consistent at Bahrain. And I would just want to make a little comment on the circuit, really. I think I've seen a lot of people give it a lot of praise recently, and I want to challenge that. Ooh, controversy. No,
All you ever do on this podcast is create controversy,
not-
whether it's about
I'm
other
not gonna-
YouTube
I'm
creators,
not gonna
whether
go
it's about
hard
the
on it. I'm not gonna
circuit,
go-
or
I'm
whether
not
it's
gonna
about a
start
driver,
swinging.
or whether it's about fans.
I'm not going to start swinging.
Ed's
It's
the
just a
fire,
comment.
and we're just here to put
I
him out.
think-
Yeah,
I
so that we
think-
don't get cancelled.
If I don't like Bahrain as a track.
I didn't until this sort of. I don't like driving it.
It's
At
awful to
all.
drive in the
No.
F1 game.
But
it's not as
it's-
bad as China is to drive. That's
When you
like-
compare it to other tracks that we have on the calendar, such as Sochi, we have to be thankful that we have Bahrain.
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm. If it wasn't a night race, would anyone care? Similar to Singapore, if it wasn't a night race, we wouldn't even be going there anymore because it produces no racing and it doesn't even produce crashes.
No, I
Obviously-
don't know. I think Bahrain does produce good racing. I wished, because I actually quite enjoyed driving it when it was like this, but I think it was 2010 when
The
they had the
endurance
different
layout, yeah.
when they had the endurance layout with all the different,
Which is what we should be racing on this
um,
weekend. But
which
yeah.
I think is I thought that was actually really cool. But yeah,
That's definitely a circuit we should be racing on this weekend. I don't think this weekend we're kind of straying into the preview now, but
I think it's gonna be quite a boring track
I don't
because
think it's gonna be
Yeah.
good.
I mean
to be
it
honest.
clashes with the Spurs match again, and we play it's the North London derby, and then the week after that it clashes with Crystal Palace. So, like the F1
Playing Burnley again. Oh no. 0-0. XG of 0.01.
Exactly.
20 at the back.
So if we go into F2 and then we can do the predictions because then we
Sure.
round off the whole weekend.
Yeah.
I just thought while we were recording this podcast, do you remember when Schumacher crashed at Monaco to end qualifying so Alonso couldn't qualify ahead of him?
Yeah.
Do you think Schumacher's lock-up that caused Ilott to be spinaled was like maybe on purpose a little bit?
no.
An engineered
Absolutely
situation.
not.
The Schumacher
I like-
family heritage coming out
think-
swinging. No, I'm
I
kidding.
like the thought. I like the thought.
The
process, but
conspiracy.
absolutely
No,
not.
no. I think I watched it and I was gutted because it was. I mean, I want Schumacher to win it, kind of,
I don't.
but well, I don't want Mazepin to win it. Then, let's
Oh,
put
but
it
yeah, I
that
don't
way.
want Mazepin to win.
I don't care who wins it out of the other two. They're both nice lads, and
Yeah.
now that Ilott doesn't have an F1 seat, I really want Schumacher to win it, because otherwise Ilott's got to find somewhere else to go and drive for a year.
Yeah, I think. Obviously, I had quite a spat on Twitter with a Schumacher fanboy. Schumacher lover might be more accurate, but he claimed that Ilott, that collision, was a deliberate takeout attempt on Schumacher.
No.
Like, bro,
no.
are you blind? He literally avoided him and took out someone else.
The thing is if he was taking out Schumacher,
He wouldn't have turned. They would have gone straight into.
well, the thing is they would have been on the same points that they were coming out of the feature race, and Schumacher was still ahead in the championship.
It would have hurt him.
If he would have made the move, he would have gained points on him in the championship, and if he stayed in the race, he would have had the chance. Schumacher could have had a retirement later on in the race if he stayed in it and made that pass. He could have gained more points. So I don't think he did.
That was an overtake attempt. I think it was a genuine lock-up, and he couldn't stop.
Yeah,
you don't overtake there, and if you do,
I don't know.
Happens. I don't think.
I think it's impossible to tell personally whether he was going for the move or not.
Yeah.
Obviously we'll go into sort of like, I have a couple of points just on the because obviously I watched the feature race and the sprint race, just going through them. But one thing definitely that I wanted to ask your guys' opinion on is, what do you think is going to happen with Ilott? Do you think he's going to stay in Formula 2 and try and win the championship next season?
Yeah.
Or do you think he's going to go to somewhere else like Formula E?
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut in, but
yeah, no, it's fine.
if he goes to Formula E, he says goodbye to his chance for an F1 seat, in my opinion.
Anyone
you don't come back to that.
You've just got to look at De Vries, haven't you?
Yeah, De Vries didn't have any other options. He won F2. There was no space for him in the Mercedes program, even though he should be in that Williams seat instead of Latifi. But
absolutely.
I'm just a messenger, don't shoot me. But at the end of the day, that's not how it works sometimes, and it might well be a blessing in disguise if Ilott doesn't win the championship, because he doesn't have to go and race Super Formula or something for a year.
Yeah.
And doesn't Super Formula give less?
It gives a lot less license points.
And he probably won't get into it because he doesn't have ties with Red Bull.
Exactly.
And basically, and not to boil it down or degrade the series, because it's a brilliant series. If you're not Japanese or you're not a Red Bull affiliate, you don't tend to get into that series. Same with British touring cars. Most of the drivers are never British. It's Super Formula is a national series, more or less. I believe
it's probably the equivalent of British F4, but obviously
it's the proving ground for Japanese drivers. You could say the same about V8 supercars and Super 2 and Super 3.
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
one area, I don't know if Ilott's probably too old for it now, but he might have already done it. TRS in New Zealand, that could be a good option for him over the winter. But I think he might have already done that. As usually a place for.
What is TRS?
It's the Toyota Racing Series in New Zealand. It's a winter series.
Okay.
If you think of I think it was GP2 Asia. It's a bit like that was. It's kind of for drivers trying to get from. I think it's from regional F4, regional F3 into F3, kind of that thing.
Okay.
I don't know if
is it similar sort of pace as F2 and Super Formula?
No,
or is it slightly below?
a proper like junior category.
Right.
It's like Lando Norris did it after his F3 season in a Euro F3.
Right, okay. So something like to cover.
Yeah, it's just a winter series to get some more license.
I mean, maybe there's nothing stopping him, and certainly to get more on his CV, it might be useful for him to do it.
However, I think I don't think license points will be a worry for Ilott anyway. I think top 3 are already guaranteed F1 entry.
Yeah, and I don't think that he can go and do a niche formula like that without a prelim contract on the table, because youngsters get forgotten about so easily, and realistically the only things you can go and do are become a reserve or test driver or get back and to go to Super Formula. They're the only two that really are like affiliated with F1, that they'll remember you exist.
I think it's the most obvious option, but I think it's the best option
to stay in.
I think he needs to re-sign with UNI Virtuosi, a team that he knows, a team that have provided championship winning. I'm not sure whether they've provided championship winning cars before, but I remember Giotto. Absolutely. They've provided good cars to the likes of Markelov when he was in his prime. I'm pretty sure last season they provided Giotto, a really good car, and so I think he should stay there. I would say go to ART, but they haven't quite been at the same level.
I think that's where he's going to go. I think he's going to go ART.
I think he's going to go to Prima.
I think
Really?
ART or Prema.
I think Prema, Schwartzman and Ilott duo at Prema.
Because you got to remember that
They
Ilott
would
is
dominate the constructors' championship.
And they're both Ferrari juniors. And
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. You got
both
to
those seats will
FDA.
probably be freed up. Why not?
And then I think that puts a real championship battle for next year on Schwartzman and Ilott. And I think that'll be really interesting to watch. I also think Zhou will challenge for the championship next year.
He's
I think
got
he's
to.
a really underrated driver.
He's got to.
I think if he doesn't, he's going to get binned off.
I think, no offence to Grosjean, he's a brilliant driver, but he's just got that hint of Formula E about him, if you know what I mean.
I think that so next season's 2021, 2022. The next 2 seasons is going to be a head-to-head between Zhou and Lundgaard for Alonso's seat.
Because next season is Zhou's 3rd season in Formula 2.
Yeah.
And beyond your 3rd season, if you're not in F1 yet.
Yeah, but he can't get into F1 after that because Alonso's got 2-season contract.
That is something you got to think about. But yeah.
Have Renault got a test driver or reserve currently? Because he could always go into that
I
position.
think they got Sorokin.
Possibly.
I think Sorokin and Zhou are the two reserve drivers.
But I think he could very easily, if he wins the F2 championship next year, Zhou, I think the best option for him would be go to that reserve or test driver role, wait for Alonso to retire, because he's going to, let's be honest, at some point or another.
The unfortunate thing is that, so I always compare back to good old Formula 1 06 Championship Edition, the video game.
Yep.
Best F1 game ever.
Yeah, because there were 3 roles you could sign. F1, the first driver, second driver, and test driver. And if you sign as test driver, you'd go and do tests, and then the next season you'd be given a seat as second driver. Unfortunately, we live in a culture now in Formula 1 where you get signed as a test driver and it's more of an actual role than just a stepping stone. And we can see it in the evidence of Gutierrez and Ocon and Verline as well. And Van Dorn. All of them got stepped over, and you've got to really consider before you make a big move like that.
But the thing is when, Van Dorn Mercedes, right? He was.
Yeah, he's still Mercedes.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure Gutierrez is as well. The thing is there was much less of an opportunity for them to get a seat in that Mercedes car than there is, I think, for Zhou. And I think if Zhou was to go there and improve the car, and if anything, get a bit of his stamp on the cars, I think he could definitely get that seat. And I think there's a good chance I see him on the same level as Ocon, and that's before he's even got to F1. But yeah, I think just to sort of round off this F2 talk,
The championship.
there's really still really close in the championship. This weekend, Eilert was on pole for the feature race. It was his 5th of the season. Interestingly, I'm pretty sure Schumacher hasn't actually got pole in this season. He's just been super consistent, and he's had a lot of sort of consistent third places and sort of double podiums. It was a great start from Schumacher, actually, because his qualifying wasn't great. He was only 10th, but he went from 10th to 5th after the first corner. Apart from that, nothing else really happened in the feature race. It was a really good win for Drugovich, who's now won 3 times, but yet he's still not really that high up in the championship, so he's a bit inconsistent.
He's had quite a few retirements.
Yeah.
I think Filipe Drugovich is a bit of an enigma. Last season, I don't think he even had an F3 podium, and he got promoted into F2 into that MPC.
I mean, they must have seen something in the data, or they must have seen something in him to give him the seat.
They were right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. They've replaced the Lord Mahavira Knuthen with better driver. Obviously, a better driver.
Yeah.
There's not many worse than Mahavira Knuthen to
be
fair.
Come on, he's the GOAT. He is the GOAT of motorsport.
You're saying he's the GOAT. You're saying he's the worst thing that's ever happened to the sport.
He's a GOAT, not the
He is the GOAT. Forget Lewis Hamilton. Forget Michael Schumacher.
I mean, he was only there so Tatiana Colvron didn't come last.
If I edited this podcast and you weren't the one doing it, it'll be about 4 minutes long because of your hot takes.
I just wouldn't speak. It'll just be you two.
Yeah, that's. I mean, if I speak, that's going to become a thing now, isn't it?
I'm going to continue to speak my mind,
But I'm pretty sure on the podium, I think was Eilert in second. I could be wrong.
I think Eilert.
And then there was a maiden podium for Jehan de Rouvler, which I didn't really watch much of the F3 last year, I swear Deruvla was Prima and he was like second or third in the championship.
I think he was third in the end.
But it's crazy to think with how well Schwartzman has done that's actually his first podium. He has shown flashes of brilliance, but I think he's been outshone largely in that Carlin team by Tsunoda, which was Tsunoda an F3 driver as well before?
Yeah, Tsunoda was an F3.
Yeah, which is interesting because he wasn't as high in the championship. Well. Yeah. And then on to the sprint race, talking of Tsunoda, he was actually third in the championship going into the race. He'd done really, really well. But he got a puncture at the start of the race, not quite sure how. So obviously like that kind of has put a bit of a stop to his championship challenge. And then obviously there was the huge, ILOT crashing into Deruvla, which is a shame because Deruvla was on for some quite good points and a really good weekend. Possibly might have cost ILOT the championship, but I think it's still too close to call with the points gap.
I think, as Torin said earlier, the best thing for ILOT is to not win the championship. Let Schumacher win it. Take the super license.
Exactly, because then you can do another season.
You can do another season in F2. You can get either consolidate yourself in this Univirtuosi team or move on to ART or Prima, which I think either of them are probably options for him.
Definitely.
Because I don't see Marcus Armstrong staying around. Although he was decent this weekend. I think one thing to note from that sprint race, Giuliano Alesi, heartbreaking for him.
Yeah, I did have that written down. He was going to get third,
and he and then his Delatraz, he was rapid. And one thing that upsets me as an Aitken fan for Formula 2, Delatraz was behind Aitken on the same strategy. They pit at the same time, and Aitken was still not even in the points, and his tyre blew up on the last lap. It's just infuriating to see Aitken. He's not the best of drivers, let's be honest. He's mid, but he's in that camp. We've spoken about it before. That Campos team is at the moment a place where you go to lose your career almost.
Yeah,
they just can't get it done.
He needs to change team. I'm not sure whether he's in a 2-year contract.
I think he's done with F2. This was his third season, and I think he is.
I don't know, because I think you put him in a.
I think he might go to Dams.
Dams.
I think
Sean Galale. So someone close to Sean Galale, I don't know if it was like a partner or a family member, has more or less accidentally revealed that Sean Galale is not in Formula 2 next year.
Which I agree
Hurrah.
with.
Well, yeah, I mean, as soon as they announced Dan Tickton, we will not say the nickname that Will Buxton said for him. We will not.
What did he say?
Oh, come on.
What was that?
What's his nickname?
He's baiting it.
Yeah, I'm baiting it.
He's baiting
it
out. I can read his mind games.
Who's that?
Dan Tickton. He streams. He's a Call of Duty streamer.
Yeah, he's actually a gamer.
Yeah, but Tickton and Galeo was always going to be a lineup that was going to attract attention.
I think. Well, Yuri. I don't think Aitken's getting that Dempsey. That's got to be Yuri Vips's all over.
I don't know. They haven't got any connection. They've got as much connection to Red Bull as they do Williams.
Well, because Yuri Vips, he's already had 2-3 races in that car while Galeo was out, so he's got experience.
Wouldn't they want to put Vips in that Carlin?
Vips would want to go to Carlin.
Because Carlin isn't really even a Red Bull associated team.
It's just sponsored by him.
It's only because of Tsunoda that they're Red Bull backed this year.
Right.
Because before that, Lando Norris was there. They were just painted blue. Same as
Carlin used to be based 3 minutes from my house.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because I've got old Vettel stuff.
Yeah.
But the interest. That'd be a good team. Tsunoda and Vips. In the Carlin.
Absolutely.
I don't think Tsunoda should be an F1 next year at all.
Tsunoda isn't going to be an F1.
No, I hope he isn't. I don't think he's ready for it. No.
You need top 3, I think.
I think he's got enough points because he did the test at Imola and he's got a couple free practice sessions coming up.
Oh, fair enough then.
But it would be scraping it, and I don't think he's ready for it yet.
Yeah, he's shown his inconsistencies. He's shown his highs for sure.
Yet being the key word, obviously. I think he will be, just not yet.
I think one thing that was actually really interesting that happened in the sprint race. Schumacher, he's, Mr. Consistent this season. He's been putting in good performances. He almost threw it away. It was really surprising to see. He was like very, very, very uber defensive with I think it was Mazepin, if I can speak, and Piquet. He made a lot of defensive moves that were sort of like, really questionable. And then, obviously, one thing that kind of went unnoticed was Piquet's drive. Hasn't really shown much this season, but he sort of had a bit of a breakthrough race. And obviously what happened at the end was, he didn't deserve it. He, deserved that podium. And then obviously, Ed touched on his teammate Delatraz, alternate strategy, just blitzing through the field. And getting a podium. I don't know if Delatraz has already got a podium this year, but if he hasn't, then it's definitely been deserved, because I think he's done a solid job this year. But yeah, good. It was a good drive from Schwartzman and Mazepin, Mazepan. I always get stuck on his pronunciation.
That's all right. You don't need to learn how to pronounce his name because he's not going to be in F1 next year.
Good.
Fingers crossed.
After that infamous tweet.
We won't say it.
But yeah, it was a good drive from them. P1 and 2, they were sort of a class ahead of the rest of the field. And yeah, there's still 14 points. It's between Schumacher and Eilert, so still sort of like all to play for.
Yeah.
Anything can happen in F2 going into those last 2 races. And also the battle for P3 in the championship is really exciting now. Because there's only 5 points between Schwartzman, Snowder, and Mazepin. So that's going to be super exciting to see who comes out on top for that. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much what happened with F2. It's going to be interesting to see what team comes out on top in the Sakir circuit.
I've got one more thing to note on F2 before we probably wrap that up and head into predictions. But after the Eilert incident, I saw a video on Twitter. Schumacher actually had a bit of damage. He had a bit of suspension damage on the straight. His car was grabbing. His wheel was slightly to the right on the straight.
Right.
So that would have explained his slightly slower pace at the end of the race.
I see.
Obviously he gained from Alesi's misfortune. But yeah, that was the reason Schumacher was a little slower. You wouldn't have known that at the time because it wasn't major.
No.
It was only like maybe 5 degrees steering.
Yeah.
But it's enough to affect the car, and even a millimetre out, and you'd notice. But I think it's probably time to move on to predictions. I believe Torin noted that down earlier.
I'm predicting I'm going to be very happy because my Renault Formula 1 team Christmas jump has been dispatched.
Love to see it.
I
don't love to see it because I don't like Christmas jumpers.
So we'll go through. I suppose we'll go through last week's predictions, and then we'll do predictions for Sakir, and then we'll just conclude it.
Yeah,
wrap it up.
Yeah.
It's been a longer podcast than usual, so if you have listened to this far, thank you. Well done. Even if you skipped the intro bit, it's been longer because we did spend 20 minutes talking about one incident, but it was an important incident to round up about. So my predictions for the Bahrain Grand Prix, which just passed, and I will argue this. No, I won't argue this one about the Ferrari power unit failure. I was going to try and argue something to do with Perez, but obviously
Giuliano Alesi, he's a Ferrari driver. His engine went. It counts. No, it doesn't.
Hang on, I said Ferrari power unit failure. I did not say which category.
It's not Ferrari power unit though.
Isn't it?
It's Mechachrome.
That's
Isn't
the
it?
same as me trying to argue my one.
No,
It's a
it's
Ferrari
really not.
driver.
I'm not even going to discuss your one.
I shouldn't have said that, but no.
He's a Ferrari driver and his engine. So I never said. So I didn't say a Ferrari produced. I said a Ferrari power unit. That could mean produced by Ferrari or driven by a Ferrari. Okay. So I put Hamilton to win, which we all put.
Shock.
I think Bottas second. I don't know, or Bottas as Crofty called him at one point.
Bottas.
Verstappen third, Leclerc fourth for whatever reason. I thought that. Albon fifth, and then Ricciardo sixth. So I got one because my DNF was Norris, and my pole was Hamilton, so I got 2 points.
Yeah.
We're going to Tom next, which was a T-bone crash in turn 1, which there was not.
There was a T-bone crash, but not in turn 1.
Not turn 1.
Yeah, there was. I mean,
There wasn't lap 1 turn 1 either.
yeah, and I think you said lap on turn.
Did I?
It was like lap 5.
Oh, I might have shot myself.
Okay. Because I think you were thinking it's going to be a pit stop one like Stroll and Sainz,
Yeah.
2018 or 17. One of the two.
Grosjean, Maldonado.
17 because Sainz was in a Toro Rosso.
Maldonado, Gutierrez was a pit stop one as well.
So Tom's predictions were a Bottas win,
Yikes.
A Hamilton second.
I got to keep the faith. He's going to win one day, surely.
Wow,
Championship.
I feel really sorry. You actually didn't get any points from
Again,
the top 6.
2 weeks in a
Yes.
row.
Your DNF.
Yes.
You didn't give a DNF. You said that you thought the crash would involve Latifi or Grosjean, which I'm not even going to give half a point to because it wasn't a turn 1. And I think if we can both agree not to give half a point,
Yeah,
I think it's a unanimous.
But I think
you've got to
first
agree as
DNF,
well.
First DNF. I'll agree with that with the wild prediction, but I think the first DNF.
And I think
I should get a point for first DNF.
no, I
surely.
think
It's
for
a
I think
little morbid.
I think it's a bit morbid, and I think in respect of what happened, you
Okay,
should
alright,
admit
I'll,
not to
I'll
take.
agree with that.
Haha,
I'll agree with that.
we killed him to not taking a point. That's a W.
That's I can't really say against that. Otherwise, we will get cancelled.
To be fair, you got Hamilton pole, so you still got as many points as me, more or less. So I only got
Did he-
1
oh,
point
did he
more.
get
Oh, so I still get a
yeah.
point.
Yeah, you still got a point.
We're off the line, lads.
One
Let's
point.
go.
One
Cleared
point.
off the
Come
line.
on, celebrating like George Russell.
I've
got a point.
I've put for Eds that he said big crunch, or you said like hairpin time or something.
No, that was for Tom.
Oh, was it? I don't remember what your prediction was then. Sorry.
Mine was
I thought it was to do with the hairpin.
I originally said DRS would be OP, but you didn't allow that.
Yeah, because that was obvious.
Yeah, I can't remember what I said. Because we. Oh.
You're just gonna have to accept the 0 points.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
gonna have to
same.
accept the 0 points on that because
Yeah,
we
well,
did discuss it and
I
it was
think it was wrong anyway.
it was wrong. Yeah, I put big crash because I'm fairly certain you said there was going to be like a hairpin crash or something.
Yeah, I was still talking about.
No,
Tom.
I know what it was. It was the crash where it was the
Oh, yeah,
corner that
turn
Schumacher
10.
and Eilert crashed
Yeah,
at.
yeah,
Yeah.
That didn't happen. So.
Well, I mean, unless you want to count Schumacher and Eilert, but I'm not going to allow
You get a point for a Lacey, so no.
it. That's a. Oh, speaking of VAR, never mind.
Uh-oh.
Hamilton win, Verstappen second,
Let's
Bottas
go!
third, Ricardo fourth, Albon fifth, Norris sixth, Hamilton pole.
3
So he
points.
got 3 points because his first DNF was Leclerc, which didn't come in. But still, that's an
I think
impressive
that
showing.
means- How many points did you get in yours? 2.
I have absolutely no idea. I think we're tied.
I think yeah, because I got 2 and you got 3 last
Yeah,
time, so
yeah.
we should be tied.
I'm just happy with a point over
Tom's, I think so. It should be 5 each for us, and then Tom on 1. We'll get the graphic up to correct that.
Yeah.
We'll sort that out later.
Someone will make a graphic at some point.
So, yeah, we'll get it up.
Yeah.
We'll get one out at some point, and then we should start doing the predictions for next week. I'm just going to copy and paste my notes thing so that I have to type this all out again.
I'll start. So obviously,
Hold on 1 second. Gee.
I was going to do a little intro for it, just to explain.
Oh, go on then. Yeah, go
So
on.
it's the Sakir Grand Prix on the outer loop. It's not an oval, okay, people, right?
Oval GP.
There's a braking zone, and it's turn 1, and it's like shush, all right, shush. So yeah, it's the outer loop, which I don't think we should be using. Hopefully, it'll be exciting. Probably not. Let's be honest. It's just going to be another Monza. Yeah. I
don't know. I think it will be interesting to see. I think it will be a good race, personally.
I think it's the perfect location for F1 testing. The outer loop for Bahrain.
No.
Or if not, the endurance
It
loop.
doesn't. I think the endurance track will be really good because
I think
It's
endurance
low
would be
speed and
I
high
think
speed.
endurance
yeah,
would be
you've got
better
to
for
test
racing.
the car. Isn't the whole point of it to test the car? Isn't that why Le Mans was a Bugatti test circuit? And so I made that all up.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it was a test. circuit.
You've thrown me off now. Basically, Fulham have just gone 2-0 up against Leicester, is what Ed has just
Yeah.
pointed out to me. I
Well,
think we're.
my flatmate's Fulham fan, so I'm getting them all the texts.
Oh jeez. I would just be going elsewhere tonight.
No, it's fine.
Lockdown things.
Chelsea and Fulham aren't rivals anyway. Moving on.
But yeah, I mean, I quite like the idea of going to a track that we don't race on, because otherwise, then there's no data at any of the tracks,
Yeah.
and
It's
just
more
get rid of all the
unpredictable.
practice sessions just straight into qualifying.
Just get rid of the
No, I'm
circuit to
kidding.
Catalonia anyway. It's boring as it is, let alone with this testing. Anyway, have you are you ready for predictions yet, Torin? Or
Yeah, I'm ready. You go right ahead.
Right, I will. So I'll start with pole, and then top 6, then first DNF, then crazy thing. So pole, Lewis Hamilton. Come on now. Bottas is still going to be a 10th or 2 behind probably. So yeah, Bottas pole.
Bottas pole.
Yeah, Bottas pole. No, I said Hamilton. No, Hamilton pole.
Okay,
He said it. No, he said it.
He said
He said
Bottas
it.
pole.
Bottas-
No, I said Hamilton.
He said it.
No,
He's committed
I'm not
to it.
having this. I'm not having
You
this.
can have it if I can have my Giuliano Alesi.
No, fine. Bottas pole. Bottas pole.
No, I'm kidding. Hamilton pole. Go right ahead.
Okay.
What's your top 6?
I think Well, it was in my head because I was going to say Bottas win, but now I'm going to change my mind. Hamilton win, Verstappen second, Bottas third. I'm going to say Ricciardo fourth, Albon fifth. Why are you laughing?
You just said the exact same top 5 as you said for Bahrain.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to change. I don't think it's going to be any different.
Who are you going to say for P6?
P6, I'm going to change it up. I'm going to say Jordan. No, I'm not going to say Jordan.
Go on, you know you want.
No, I'm going to say Perez.
Perez. Okay.
That way, it's not the exact same.
That's incredible.
And I
I'm
think
just sat there watching, ticking it off.
first DNF, Lance Stroll.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Strolling into P20.
And I think crazy prediction is going to be. I don't think we might have only just touched upon it briefly, but I think Pietro Fittipaldi is going to finish in the points.
Ooh, that is a wild
I
prediction.
think it's going to be a race of attrition.
Mm.
There's a lot of straights. I don't know how these engines are going to cope, especially in the relatively high temperatures of Bahrain. I think tyres probably won't be too much of an issue. Really, it's not really going to be high deg. But yeah, I think Pietro Fittipaldi will scrape into the points. I'm probably going to be wrong, but it's the first thing that came to my head. It's a little out there, so I'm going to have it. Well, Tom, what do you think?
Okay. I'm gonna follow suit with the pole. I think Hamilton's gonna get pole, just purely on what happened last weekend. I'm also gonna go for a Hamilton win, just because I don't think Verstappen has the pace in the car to stop it, and I just think Bottas has not got the confidence right now. He's had a couple of bad races. Hamilton is on another level. Don't see why he's not going to win unless he has a mechanical problem, which, I mean, we know the odds for that, and they're not high at all.
Yeah, we calculated, didn't we, last podcast?
Yeah.
That's wild.
It was crazy. But I think he's going to come first. I think Bottas will come second. I'm hoping for his sake he doesn't have as much of a mare as he has done the last couple of races. I'm going to go for a... You know what? I'm going to go... This is a bit of a crazy prediction here. I'm going to go Ricciardo third. I think this is where he's going to get his last podium.
What, last his career or last at Renault?
Just last podium at Renault. Last podium at Renault. There's more to come.
Over?
The nation of Australia will come through.
just starts like
Nation of everywhere.
we just hear shouting in the
Who
distance.
doesn't love Daniel Ricciardo other than Vettel fans? Let's be honest.
This is true.
Just because he got showed up, right?
Hot take.
Another
I think
hot
that was
take.
cold
Hotter
take,
than
to be
this
honest.
coffee that I made 4 hours ago. That's still hot.
Are you trying to plug your Chili's bowl?
Chili.
Hi, welcome to Chili's.
Hi, welcome to Chili.
Anyway, Tom, P4.
P4. I'm gonna go for. I'm debating between Ocon. I think Ocon is actually gonna have a really good race. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Perez. No, I'm gonna change that. I'm gonna go Albon P4.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go for Perez. I think is gonna be in P5, and I think Ocon, because of the Renault, it's the fastest through the speed traps. I think they're going to have a really good weekend.
You going for a max DNF or something?
I said Verstappen third, right?
No, you said Hamilton, Bottas, Ricciardo, Albon, Perez, Ocon.
Okay. No, I'm going to go for first DNF Verstappen.
Okay.
In that case,
and
I'm gonna go.
By the way, if I've just given that to him, that's a half a point. I'm saying it right now
enough,
because I just gave him the idea.
Fair enough.
Right, I'll let you have that.
And I'm gonna go Ocon P6. I think Ocon's gonna finally have his breakthrough race. He's gonna, be helped by the speedy banana along the straights.
The potassium.
All the potassium's gonna help him. So yeah, I'm gonna go first DNF Verstappen. I think he's gonna be a raging bull into the first corner and just hairpin time someone and just blow up.
That's the same prediction as last week.
Was it?
Verstappen, wasn't it? Yeah, you said someone was gonna You said someone was gonna T1 T-bone.
T-bone. So it's similar, but not quite. That's not my wild prediction.
Oh, you putting a name? Oh, no.
That's not
That's not my wild prediction.
Ooh.
I'm just going that as my first DNF Verstappen. I think my wild prediction, I'm gonna go for. There's a couple that I've got in mind. I'll say the first one. If you don't want to allow it, I'll go for my second one. I think that both Ferraris are going to get knocked out of Q1.
That's I think that's fine.
Ooh, that's a hot take.
I think that's fair.
I think that's bold enough.
Of course it's fair. That's definitely bold enough. Yeah, because they haven't got knocked out of.
I think
both
Leclerc.
I think they've been knocked out of Q1 totally once. I think I remember.
Yeah.
Yes, they have.
Yeah.
Yes,
Might
definitely.
be Hungary.
This isn't-
somewhere like that.
This isn't part of my wild prediction, but this is what I think is going to happen. So this doesn't. I don't need this to happen to have the points. Okay, just to make this clear. I think Leclerc's going to have It's not going to be through the fault of his own. I think he's going to have some sort of problem, and I think Vettel is just going to mess up his lap, or just the pace won't be there. That is my very wild prediction.
Cool.
That's
Nice.
That's about it.
Fair
I don't
play.
know if are we doing tweets of the week?
I haven't done my predictions yet, so.
Oh yeah, good.
I don't think we will because I don't think we're fully prepared for a tweet of the week.
I mean, I've got a video of the week, but we can do that after your
Yeah.
predictions.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go over Hamilton pole and Hamilton win because I want points
Yeah.
and I'm getting competitive now.
You can tell by my list that I'm not.
I'm gonna.
Tom's already lost.
Yeah, I've already accepted that I'm losing.
I mean, you have to get like us not score and you to get everything.
Exactly.
Right,
Exactly.
you're down by 4 points.
I'm gonna go with Verstappen second. I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with Verstappen second and Bottas third.
Ooh.
Verstappen
Verstappen ahead of Bottas.
I'm gonna go with Perez P4. Painful missing out. I'm gonna go Ricciardo P5 and Gasly P6.
Who's
I
P3?
see where this is going.
P3 is Bottas.
Oh right, yeah,
So-
yeah.
I see where this is going. I know where first DNF is.
First
Come on then,
DNF
first
is Mr. They Raced Me So Hard Albon.
Yeah, sick. See you later, lads.
And I think I'm going to stick with my wild prediction that a Ferrari power unit's going to just blow up. Because
Is that over the weekend?
I think as it didn't happen, that's fair.
I think I'm going to expand my prediction to include any Formula 1, any Ferrari-backed drivers in Formula 2.
Just to annoy
And
Ed.
not blow up. Failure.
Fine.
Oh, really? I'm being allowed that?
Yeah.
Awesome. I can't wait to win.
FC reliability is alright.
Yeah, true.
I mean, there's only 4 FDA drivers.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of struggled. Like, I couldn't think of any other predictions that could happen because, I mean, if two drivers managed to come together on that track,
Wish mine wasn't so unlikely now.
I mean, I just thought of that off
It's
the top
fine,
of my
I'm
head. To be
sticking.
fair,
I said Pietro Fittipaldi's going to get points.
well, it might happen.
I don't
think that's
Race
too
of
wild.
attrition.
Has 3 points total this season.
2 of them scored by Grosjean as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I really liked them as a driver pairing. I'm quite gutted they're being separated. No matter who goes into that seat, even if it was Perez and Hulkenberg, I still think I'd be kind of gutted. But I don't have a tweet of the week. I didn't spend very much time on Twitter.
I didn't, but I do have a.
I've got a video of the week, which I might be able to nab later on.
Which one is that?
It's from F1 Humor Official. It is. Are you guys aware of when the Panthers played F1? Basically, he was doing qualifying, and he.
Yes, I have seen.
Yes, and he's easy third, cross the line, 16th. And the caption is Checo Perez from Bahrain Grand Prix 2020. I
That's
think
quite
that's
funny.
one of the funniest F1 memes I've seen in a long time. It actually made me laugh. So I'm gonna, I'd say that is my video of the week.
I've got, if you'll allow it, if Torin hasn't got one, I would like to put forward 2.
You can put forward
If
to
that's
anyway. I'm going
okay.
to pop on Twitter real quick.
It's
and
not
see
like we
if
still
I
get
can
scored on this. So go for it.
The first one I'm going to go for, which was my original first tweet of the week, is Matt Gallagher tweeting Russell in the points with an eyes emoji,
Stop.
and it's got everyone with the Schumacher off to go,
Fight David Coulthard.
off to go beat someone up.
I was expecting a stop the count.
That also would have been acceptable. As
I'll shout and
tweet
stop
of
the
week.
count after Stroll gets.
And then the other one that I had, I don't even know if it's a tweet because I found it on Instagram, but I just sort of like screenshotted it, and it's the as Racing Point sort of like put up their results graphic after the race, and it's their sort of 2020 Bahrain Grand Prix race results. Both DNFs, but there's spot the difference, bit of spot the difference going on here.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Which is I thought was quite funny as well.
Racing Point are the best social media.
Absolutely. Well, they're winning the social media team championship, I believe.
Because we all watch Internet
Exactly.
reactions.
So
we all love it.
WTF1.
I do actually. And on top of
Fair enough.
on top of that, I do actually have a favourite tweet. It's from today, and it's totally nothing to do really with the Bahrain GP. It's from Josh Revel. and it was to do with Deleda.
Oh yeah.
Mr. Deleda
Oh,
saw
I've
my
seen
video.
this.
Mr. Deleda
Yeah.
didn't like my video. Mr. Deleda wants me to take down my video, or Mr. Deleda will sue me over the video. #poetry. Someone replied to it saying, "Not sure he has legal grounds to sue. There isn't any defamation or misrepresentation." And Josh replied with, "He doesn't really, but it's not something I can risk. YouTube doesn't pay me enough to compete with Daddy's cash."
Not wrong. I should have said that one.
That's an Ed level hot take.
That is.
I think I wonder if Aiden Millward's gonna get his taken down too.
True.
He might do.
Well, we saw all the drivers almost get their not drivers, YouTubers get their channels taken down for having F1 in their names.
We're not related to F1.
Yeah, no.
We talk about chemical formulas for the vaccines and that. Science, yes.
But yeah, I mean, there was just to sort of like round off the podcast. There are a couple of just little stories that have been announced. Obviously, the ILOT saying that he's not going to be in F1. We've already discussed the Pietro Fittipaldi. There were a few interesting things that were released last night and today. One of which I found out when Torin actually put it in our sort of group chat, and it was that Audi are leaving Formula E at the end of, I think it's this season, and entering Le Mans, which I think is great. I think that's fantastic news.
You know,
Having an Audi hypercar.
It's me punching the air right now.
I was moaning about Audi's livery. I think it was on Saturday. I was like, "Oh wow, Audi, same livery again."
Please leave. I don't.
Yeah.
I when I've started watching Le Mans, I never I don't watch WEC or WEC or whatever
No.
people call it. I don't really watch it, but when it's Le Mans, of course I watch it. It's the best race in the world. And I've only ever watched it since Toyota's dominance. So I think my first race I watched must have been 2018, Alonso's first win.
Right.
So I've never known it as anything else, but okay, Toyota have won LMP1. Who's next? So I'm looking forward. Obviously, the hypercars. It's already refreshing. There's the Aston Martin Valkyrie project. There's Peugeot, which Grosjean was actually a link to drive. Actually,
Are they both confirmed?
they're
Aston
both
Martin
confirmed.
and
Yeah.
Peugeot.
I know Peugeot confirmed. I don't know if Aston Martin is actually a hypercar or
Right.
not, but they're definitely bringing a new car, and I'm just looking forward to something different. I don't know if they're just getting rid of LMP1 or hypercars, just a new category. I'm not sure.
That's Audi Apt that's left the sport, isn't it, or is leaving the sport?
Yeah, it's out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any chance that has to do with the controversy of last season with Apt getting a ringer in to do the digital stuff?
I don't
think so because the team was already. It's named after
His dad, who owns his team, but
Isn't it Apt
car mod
Schaeffler
company.
or Schaeffler? Or?
yeah,
Yeah,
but
the
I
car
think
mods
a
company.
part of it is trying to save face for the manufacturer
Yeah.
and trying to break the ties to that controversy.
I think it maybe has something to do with it, or
But
it's
also,
one of
yeah,
reasons,
the
but I don't-
budgeting for Dakar and Le Mans is ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't think it's the main reason.
No, of course not.
And then the other sort of like little things that happened this week, or the start of this week. It's only Monday, but 2021 Isle of Man. Unfortunately, it has been cancelled due to COVID, which is a bit of a shame. Because I do tend to watch the highlights or watch it on the telly if it is on, and those guys have like just amazing bravery. And then the other thing was Sainz Senior has actually joined the new electric series Extreme E, which obviously is in the name, it's all electric, with a Spanish team. They're actually linked with Mahindra Racing and Neo, that are both in Formula E. So it's good to see Sainz Senior putting his racing boots back on and sort of getting back behind the wheel.
Guess you could say that's extreme E cool.
No, that's it. That's the end of the podcast.
That is, on that bombshell.
Oh yeah, exactly that.
Channel.
That's my job. That's another throwback. Classic. I don't remember what season that was, but I did it repeatedly. Thank you for listening. A much more difficult podcast in terms of trying to just do the first bit than usual.
I think it was needed.
It was definitely needed.
Yeah, we can't just ignore it.
No.
But yeah, unless you guys have anything else to say, then that's it. And
No.
we'll see you next time.
No, will it be the preview podcast? Will it be the review
I think
for
this
the
kind of was.
This is
kind
the
of was a
preview
bit of a
podcast.
preview?
Yeah,
Because,
we'll just leave it there and we'll
one
do
thing
one.
maybe worth mentioning is obviously we're at university. This is pretty much the last time.
Yeah,
we'll
other
be
than
able to
our
record in
Christmas
here.
party on Thursday.
Yeah, we'll have like a little.
Well, we won't be recording that, obviously.
We could, but we might get.
It'd be a mess, and we'd get in a lot of trouble. But so the next podcast will probably be filmed on Teams or something similar. So if the microphone quality goes down, I'm sure Ed will be flexing his special microphone.
Yeah, maybe the microphone quality goes down, but the vibes will go up.
Yeah, because we'll all just be sat chatting shit.
I hate myself so much.
That needs bleeping, by the way.
Ed is an epic YouTuber.
Epic
confirmed.
dab gamer. Right.
Very cool. But yeah, thanks for listening, guys. Obviously, it wasn't as much energy in this podcast because it's not really, I think everyone kind of felt a bit shocked after what happened after the race.
Dabbing.
Which
that wasn't
feels
paying
weird
attention.
to say after Torin is just
Anyway.
dabbing to heaven.
Unrelated.
On that note.
Unrelated, it's because Ed was doing it and Cam Newton does it.
Gamer, dab, lol.
But anyway, thank you for listening. Thank you and goodbye.
Bye. Testing 1 2.
1 2 3 1 2 3.
Oh dear. You sound like the bullied kid in class, like year 3. I like racing cars.
You know what? We were playing like tag on the playground once, and everyone else was being characters from cars, and I wanted to be Colin McRae's 1990 Subaru 22B Impreza.
Specific.
Yeah, I know, but I used to play a lot of Colin McRae Rally.
I sexually identify as a Subaru Impreza.
I sexually identify as mate from Cars 2.
Oh yeah.
Cars 2 specifically.
Yeah, no, not Cameron.
Right, levels are good. Tom, you can have these boys. That'll be the blooper section done. I'll probably cut this bit. I'll just keep it rolling though.
We'll do it live.
So, alright, we are ready to.
Hard not to go from the WINOL News Centre at 4.
Yeah. Right, we are ready to rock and roll, I believe.
Like Boris banning kids from sitting on Santa's lap, and Santa's enough to wear one.
We can talk about it if you want.
Well-ran script about how
Tweet of the week.
Boris,
That's not a tweet.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson has announced that Santa will not have to wear. Father Christmas will not have to wear a mask at Santa's grotto. However, children will not be permitted to sit on Santa's knee.
Boris Johnson has
recently come out. It's recently been exposed that Santa is a paedophile.
Boris Johnson has recently announced that your mum's a hoe. Damn. Right, we're ready. Right, let's go.
Boris Johnson has recently announced Ed Brown as an FWTF1 fan.
I will actually snap you in half.
Good fucking luck. Right, okay. And then.
Oh.
Oh my god, that was so offensive.
How? It's ready to sound. It sounded like the Minecraft. It sounded like the It sounded like the Minecraft villager more than anything else. Right. Okay, let's go. We've got 3 minutes of bloopers nearly. Right. Breathe in.
This is really like an important thing to try and read out and get right.
I suppose got a few laugh halfway through.
Oh my gosh. I mean, we can cut now, then we can just do that as a cut and then go into the actual thing.
Uh-huh.
Is my microphone on this time, Ed?
Yes, it's on.
Beautiful. Hi there, and welcome to this episode of the Formula WINOL podcast, reviewing the Bahrain Grand Prix.